He cut his teeth in data before going behind the curtain at one of the largest REITs in storage. For the last 18 months, he became the face everyone associated with parking your truck. Now he's on to a new venture, newly named at one of the fastest growing storage operators in the business. Welcome to this week's edition of Storage Unlocked, brought to you by PB Brown General Contractors. I'm your host, Thaddeus Campbell. That guy has become very well known in the last few years. He's Andrew Jones, Senior Vice President of 3rd-party at GoStore It. How does that sound, my friend?
It sounds great. I mean, GoStore It is a company I've been, referring business to for years, was seeing the incredible growth. And then when Bo Agnello hit me up and said, "Hey, you want to come join?" It's like, yeah, absolutely. So it's a wonderful feeling. Happy to be here.
You and I talked about Bo off camera, and it's someone I'm looking forward to getting back on the podcast someday. I got to reach out to him. Still by far the most prepared podcast guest I've ever had. He had like spreadsheets of answers. It was incredible. His data. Talk to me about, and this is something I wanted
Mhm.
to ask later, but I'm going to ask it off the bat because it's sort of the way it came up. You became so well known with truck parking club.
Mhm.
What did it take for you to make the choice to move on? Because you were doing
Yeah.
an unbelievable job there.
No, I really appreciate that, and I think it's a question I get asked this often because I was one of the very first customers there. I'm still a customer of Truck Parking Club, and I'm very passionate about it. And ultimately, I really created Truck Parking Club in the self storage sense of, oh, this is now the Kleenex, right? This is the Kleenex in self storage, and I felt like I really had solved that problem. And when I just got a new opportunity, I just went, you know what? I want to challenge myself and I want to do what I did at Truck Parking Club, but on the operator side. And I really did miss the operator side. I love being a vendor, don't get me wrong, but being an operator and like helping out our partners, people like myself, who's an owner, something I'm very, very, extremely passionate about because I've been there. I understand what it's like. So,
Talk to me about that journey, because obviously you started at Yardi, spent a lot of time on the data side of it, got the opportunity to go join Extra Space, worked your way up. So I think you were a regional manager as you were finishing your time at Extra Space. What did
mhm.
that mean for you? And I don't know, did you cross paths with Bo while you were at Extra Space? Was he still there at the time, or?
Oh, yeah, this is a great story. It's so funny. There's so many people, Bo Agnello, Sean Bennett, like all these people at GoStore It, I've just known for years, and getting to work with them again. It's just so fun. But I was working at Yardi and Bo was at Pagoda, National Storage Manager, right? The Pagoda
Yeah.
companies. And he goes, "Hey, I've heard about this new Yardi Breeze thing. Is that the Extra Space thing?" And I'm like, no, it's a different product anyways. And it was a little bit of a letdown, but at the same time, we just became friends. And
Yeah.
from there, just kind of kept up with each other for years and years and ultimately working together now.
So talk to me now about your role at GoStore, what exactly you're doing, and what's your mission? What motivated you and has you excited to go do something with GoStore?
Ghost Storage vision is very interesting because it's very holistic, right? You have these different types of storage operators that are really good at the mini storage, really good at boat and RV, even like in the industrial outdoor storage truck parking, which I am in and still am. But they look at it and they look at a property and they go, "Thaddeus, we could do this in this part of your property. We can do this on this part of your property, value add, whatever it is." And it really resonated with me, and not only that, but it was more so the individuals that work at GoStore It that I work with, our mission, my mission at GoStore It for 3 p.m. is to eliminate complacency in third-party management. I could shout it from the rooftops, Thaddeus. That is our mission. So when somebody comes up to me and asks me, "Why did you do this? Why do you do 3 p.m.?" That's it. That's my answer. I want to eliminate complacency in third party management, and I think we're doing a hell of a job of it so far.
Let's dive into that a little bit. I mean, we've kind of seen over the last few years a growth in the smaller, not a smaller relative term, but the groups that were not known for third party management 4 or 5 years ago when I first got into the industry, that are now starting to build that side of the business. From your perspective, and I'm really intrigued to ask this question based on your background at Yardi and understanding the data side of it. Why
Mhm.
do you think smaller operators are starting to put more focus on the 3 p.m. side of things?
I mean, what it really comes down to is, yeah, interest rates. It's really hard to kind of buy right now. We all know this. Even to develop, even the last couple of years, we all felt the highs of COVID. And when I talk to other operators, it's like it's more of an opportunistic. Oh, if we're going to grow, we have to do 3 p.m. But like, what's your why? Like, I get it. Like, I get it. Why would I go buy a duplex? Oh, to make a little extra money. Or, hey, I want to go ahead and house a family. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the difference there that I see. And my job is to kind of tell that story to the rest of the industry and developers and capital partners is, oh no, we're serious here. We want to eliminate the complacency. This is our mission statement, right? Not you're an acquisition funnel, rather. And I think that's my job is to shout that from the
Your job is
rooftops.
to get that message across. Talk to me about that. Like, are you seeing complacency in the 3 p.m. side of it from people that you're speaking to as you're talking to potential future operators that you're going to come and help?
Oh yeah. And this was kind of the this was like the big trigger of, okay, I'm really going to go Store It and really help them with this mission. Is there was a gentleman, his name's Keith. He's a partner at GoStore It. He has a store in Kansas City. He calls me up a year ago. He goes, Andrew, who do you recommend? And I go, well, Bo and Sean and all these people are at GoStore It, and they started at 3 p.m. Go to them. I think that they'll do like really well for you. That store completely turned around. I mean, from the fact that he was thinking about like selling it at a huge loss, but now he is happy as a clam, one of our best reference case studies. And I just went, wow, if they can turn that facility around, they can do anything.
I want to dig a little deeper on the data side of it and what's going on in general in the industry. We're going to take a quick break to give a shout out to our sponsor. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Storage Unlocked is brought to you by PB Brown. Over $1 billion in ground up construction delivered from single story to Manhattan high rise, institutional grade, engineered for performance, and designed to stand out. Great storage catches the consumer's eye, drives traffic, and helps lease up happen faster. From Manhattan to Miami, California to Hawaii, PB Brown is the GC to trust for your multi-million-dollar storage development. All right. You were at Extra Space when they absorbed Life Storage, the second largest and the third largest merging. Now Public Storage announces they're going to buy NSA, the first largest, buying the third largest. The consolidation's happening fast and furious, right? And obviously Public Storage not as well known for third-party management,
Hmm.
but they're building on that side of it as they look for new revenue streams as well. Extra Space, of course, a couple thousand stores that they're third party managing. How important for a group the size of GoStore is it
Hmm.
to have that ability to go? I think you guys are past 50 stores that you're third party managing. Last time I heard a real number,
Hmm.
150 stores you guys own yourself, another 50 plus that you're third party managing. Is that becoming a necessity in this era of storage with the amount of data that groups like Extra Space and Public are able to collect and the resources they're able to deploy on an individual store level because of that scale? Is it sort of one of those situations now where you sort of have to grow or you're going to get eaten up?
No, I think this is a really good question. And I just go back to like the small roots, right? Like the smaller operators, let's say mom and pops that have been doing it 10, 20 years, and they have 5 to let's say 20 stores in an MSA, right? There's over 100 of those companies in the United States today with about 4,000 stores. I was just running the data, going back to my data roots. I ran the data last week, right? And I feel for those 120, different owner operators because when a REIT gets into an MSA, they all know that what it feels like. And the amount of resources that a REIT can deploy, I mean, it could feel like suffocation, right? So when I look at the third party side for somebody like GoStore It and the mission that we've created and the kind of operations that we drive and the engine that we have, I want to help those individuals to say, you know what, you don't have to feel that asphyxiation of that REIT, of that consolidation at the top. And it's like, oh, I talked to one owner and it's like, well, I'm going to have to just join a REIT. No, you don't have to, man. Like we are about 200 stores. We have 80 stores that we manage, another 120 that we owner manage. And here's the results. And you don't have to go there. So it's not like if you can't beat them, join them. It's hey, I want to go to somebody and feel like my family's assets for 30 years are going to be taken care of because I mean, that means something at the end of the day.
You obviously worked at Extra Space, so you came out of that REIT environment and had firsthand experience there. What do you see as the biggest difference? What's the biggest selling point for you? Because look, Extra Space's selling point's easy. We've got 4,000 stores of data. We're going to be able to optimize. That's the selling point. Whether or not that's true or not, you can argue. But for
Absolutely.
GoStore, how do you compete with that? What's the value add other than like, look, it's great to say, hey, we're family, but at the end of the day,
Right.
people want to see NOI, right? They want to see bottom line. They want to see the value of their store go up.
That's true. And yes, I'm a very pathos kind of person, right? Because I've been there. I know what it's like at 3 a.m. to look at a spreadsheet and say, I got to feed more money into the beast. And that's very important. I feel like that's lacking. So I don't want to get away from that. But to your point about increasing NOI, I mean, as I looked at the results of that individual store I told you about where
Kansas
was it?
City.
Kansas City, Keith's store. I mean, it was a NOI increase of over 10%. And it was small things that we did. I mean, very small
Yeah.
things. I mean, just making sure that, leads were followed up on quicker. And to your point of what is like the competition there, what makes us different in that space, it's the nimbleness that we have in the human capital. I mean, you met one of our newest analysts, right? Mike, from Yale.
Phew.
Brilliant individual. And he comes in and we say, hey, you have an idea? Implement it. Adam
Yeah.
Willie, he also was an Extra Space alum. He had great ideas at Extra Space, and he couldn't actually do them at the time. But then he comes in to go store it, and we're like, do it. And it's just little things like that that make us different. I mean, I'll give you another example is we have an auction team, right? An internal auction team on the phone, and that's all they do is auctions, right? They'll go online, do the auction instead of the site manager or the DM having to worry about that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. And those are the
Yeah.
kind of things that I mean, it sounds so silly, but that's really what makes us different is those ideas that seem silly at the top, we can implement them and we can do it really fast.
I'm going to go a little macro now and pull back a little from just Ghost Store. You are like, as I said, 18 months at Truck Parking Club. I think you were at Just Storage, working for them in third party before that. I think that was
Hmm.
less than a year. You were at Extra Space. So it hasn't been that long since you were actively in storage. As you
Hmm.
come back and for those watching that don't know, he's coming to the end of week 3. So it's not like he's deep down into Ghost Store yet. What's changed? What looks different now versus just a couple years ago?
I mean, I think in general, the market is starting to turn and we're starting to see normal kind of levels of, self storage pre COVID. And I think you've heard that with many of your guests here, many guests that you've had that are way smarter than me. But I'll listen to a lot of different operators and I'll just go ahead and say, like, hey, what are you seeing? Just kind of anecdotally. Oh yeah, this lease up season's been like the best in the last 2 years. So I think we're kind of normalizing post COVID. But one other thing too is the holistic approach, right? It's not just self storage. It's not just boat and RV. It's not just truck parking, right? It's I have a piece of land and I need to add maybe a small bay flex. I just think that monotheistic kind of like uh, viewpoint is no longer there. And I think a lot of people are seeing that, which is really, really good to see.
It's interesting you say that, right? Because it's July of 2026. Interest rate hikes happened in March of 2023, which I'll never forget. 2 deals fell through within a month after that happening. So the
Mhm.
pain was absolutely real. You know, nobody expected 3 years, quite frankly. Like
Mhm.
nobody. If you ask people in 23, they're like, yeah, 24 is probably going to be a little slow and 25 it'll be great. And,
Hmm.
now we're in the middle of 2026 and we still haven't seen that real uptick. I had this conversation with James McLean. Shout out to my friend from Radius Plus. Yesterday we had a phone call and we were talking about, yeah, we bottomed out, but it's not like we've hit the other side of the parabola yet, right? It's not like the growth on the back end is super strong yet. Hopefully, we see some Q2 numbers and they start looking really strong on the growth side of it, but we haven't really seen that yet. Do you think
Hmm.
some of what we're seeing is just an absolute necessity of like, hey, you have to go find ways to generate income. You got to stop being, monolithic in the way you're thinking because
Right.
you got to drive revenue.
Yeah, and I mean that was quite honestly, you want to go back into like one of the reasons why I joined was yeah, you see same store revenue being point what was it 0.1% across the REITs in Q1 or whatever it was. We were at
Yeah.
8% Q1. So
Wow, same
these
store
little.
NOI growth?
Yes, and that's
Wow.
huge, right? And I say that, and I want to shout it from the rooftops because it's those little things that we do that we implement that then achieves that kind of NOI growth or same store growth. So it's not hard. I mean, it's really not hard. You just got to do it, and you have to execute on it correctly. And if you do that, you get those results.
I want to talk a little bit about technology. My friend Chris Berg, shout out, used to be my co-host on this show. Miss him. He was at Public yesterday. Public Storage opened their doors and brought a bunch of people in, kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit. Their new CEO, Tom Boyle, spoke and they talked about the technology that they're implementing. They're now up close to 90% of all contacts with Public Storage
Hmm.
happen digitally. Is not a human person speaking. It's some digital technology. 5 weeks ago, they unveiled their own AI voice agent, Ellie. 60,000 calls in
Hmm.
5 weeks. 74% they were able to resolve the situation without handing off to a human being. So I posit this to you as you guys are growing the third party side of it. How important is technology going to be as we start to look at the next 3, 4, 5 years of making sure that you're able to keep that kind of NOI growth going?
Yeah, I think what it really boils down to, and AI, it's very in vogue, and it should be because it's a very powerful tool, but it's the human capital. It's the people that power the technology. The people behind it ultimately is how you're going to keep that growth and keep it steady, right? And that's why I go
Yeah.
back to the mission statement as well is like if the person isn't fueled by a personal reason to get up in the morning, to power that technology, I mean, like, I mean, it's not useless, but in my eyes, like, I wanna be able to get out of bed and say, "Hey, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing," and I want the rest of the team to feel that way, so I think my answer to that is, technology is incredibly important on any part of the business, but if your human capital is not happy or they don't feel like they're moving in the right direction, eh, honestly, it's not sustainable, and I feel like it's very extremely sustainable here.
I love that answer, and it's something I talk about all the time. That AI is not going to take anybody's job. You're right. It's the people that are using AI effectively that ultimately will be the ones that succeed at a high level. I want to ask this question. There's so much technology. I just mentioned Public building their own in-house AI voice agent. I've seen no less than 5 companies that are now offering
Mhm.
AI, but many of them have been on the show. Tremendous respect for all of them. What they've built is incredible. But the reality is there's so many technological options coming in. You do the trade show circuit like no, you're sitting in a hotel room out in California, headed to the CSSA show as soon as we get off here. So you are gonna see it, right? And it's kind of funny. I went to my first SSA show in Orlando in 2022.
Mhm.
Packed floor, by the way, like every vendor booth was sold. Fast forward 3 years, the number
Mhm.
of tech companies that were running booths versus development companies, etcetera, was unbelievable. Is there such a thing for you, and you mentioned the, like, folks that own 5 to 20, 25 stores. Is there such a thing as too many options for technology that can be overwhelming to an operator like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why third party exists, right? Because there's a crew that can go ahead and deploy that for you. Whereas, again, putting my owner's shoes on, like I'm worried about a freaking gate failing. And like I get very myopic and I'm like, I'm gonna stare at like different gate motors for hours where I should be worried about, following up on leads, and
Yeah.
so yes, there can be like a huge amount of options. But again, that's why I exist. That's why we exist in the third party side is to say, no, 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 no. Like, we know this is your baby. Put the gate motor down, but these are the things that actually make sense to your business. And to us, it's NOI. If we can increase your NOI, then, the number one problem that I see as an owner is money, making money. Every other problem's tertiary. So how do we solve that first problem and then get the rest done? So,
Which, to your point, is many times about answering the lead, right? Like, pick
yeah,
pick up the phone.
exactly.
The amount of advertising dollars that you're spending to get that phone to ring, that's probably your only highest priority. I love that. I'm going to stay on this theme of smaller owners, those 5 to 25, 30. You mentioned National Storage earlier. Actually, Maurice Pagoda is going to be on the show in a couple weeks. Very much looking forward to having him come and join the show with Pedro Florida from Trojan Storage. So that's going to be a fun episode. You mentioned them. I mentioned those two in this context because they're a little bit bigger. They're 50 plus, 70 stores. They've got a basis where they're going to be okay. You mentioned those 5 to 25 size earlier. With the amount of money that Public Storage is right, that Public Storage
Yeah.
announced it in their Q1 earnings report, they're buying stuff at a 5 cap. We just
Yeah.
saw interest rates go to like 6.7 earlier this week, right? Like they're buying
Yeah.
170 points under what a house mortgage is right now. Maybe you get a little better if you get Lifeco money. My
Yep.
point is the those smaller owners, are they almost in a position now where it's like, man, you take the golden egg and run? Or do you think there's still massive value to them holding on to their portfolio and allowing the long-term value to grow?
I mean, it really just comes down to the family and the person. And, talked to another individual the other day and his dad is, his health is failing, but he grew that small, at about 8 stores or whatever, really grew that in one MSA. And he's like, I don't have the same gusto and love of self storage as my dad did, even though I grew up in it. And that's why I want to go to a third party manager. Now, if you love it and you want it to make it your daytime job, it's going to be hard because you don't have all the resources like we do, or, Maurice might have, or Public definitely has. But that's your prerogative. So I think what it comes down to is it's going to become harder to operate. And if you want to do it, go ahead, but just know it's going to become harder. And maybe that love that you had for it before, it's your assets at the end of the day. I tell that to partners all the time. It's you bought it, we run it, right? But we are
Yeah.
going to tell you that, hey, I'm not your dad, but that's a bad thing to do, and we'll tell you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to really wrap that up, I think it'll just be a lot harder to compete, even more so than it was the last couple of years.
I'm going to pivot back to the big green giant in our industry and talk a little bit. Very fortunate Noah Springer's joined the podcast before. Zach
Yeah,
Dickens was on a couple months ago. Love those guys. They've been relatively quiet on the big acquisition side. And obviously they absorb Life Storage. That wasn't a small deal. And maybe it's like a snake swallowing a deer. You take a couple minutes to absorb.
yeah.
As you think back to your time there, do you kind of feel like there's going to be something that comes that they kind of throw a shot across the bow after what Public Storage did with NSA?
I think there's just going to be more consolidation. Like it's just going to continue, right? And it's going to be, all right, who's this next player? Consolidate. I think like Pandora's box is open now, man. It's just going to continue to keep on rolling and rolling. And you forgot one other person, Ken Woolley, my
I
hero in self
He's also been
storage.
on the podcast. Yeah, you're correct. I don't know how I forgot him, so thank you.
No, no worries. But yeah, I would say how do I say this? Extra Space was amazing to me. I really got my master's degree in self storage from them, so I will always be thankful. And they've got a great group of people there, and I think I think they'll probably do something here in the next year or so, but who is it? I don't know.
I'm watching attentively to see what happens, and you're absolutely right to call me out. How do I forget Ken Woolley? I have no idea. Unbelievable human being,
Yeah.
and probably why you hear so many people that deal with extra space, even though they got a little negative flack for the whole ECRI thing. Um, People talk glowingly about them, which is interesting. Anyway, I digress a little bit. I
Hmm.
want to come back to third party a little bit and
Okay.
talk about this need now and as we see the consolidation,
Hmm.
how important it's going to be for somebody to really understand what the strength is if they try and operate it themselves. You mentioned somebody who's maybe in one market, maybe they do have an advantage because they really understand that market. But are we at a place where like that's hard because you can't put 30 stores in Greenville, North Carolina, right? Richard Dahlia of Eastern Carolina University, got to speak to him a while ago. Self Storage Brothers is their brand. And he
Hmm.
talked about it, right? Like you can only grow so much before you have to start answering some really tough questions, right?
Right.
So, how important is that going to be for folks that, like, hey, are you okay staying at 5 stores? Are you okay growing to, do you want to grow to 20 stores and outgrow your market where that becomes a situation where it's hard to dominate multiple markets yourself
Mhm.
if you don't have that scale? That was a big question. It wasn't my greatest question I ever asked, but I think you
No,
get where I'm going.
I get where you're going, and it really gets back the way I see it, and the way that I have conversations now in just my 3 weeks of being, at GoStore It, is I will get on the phone with a partner or a prospective partner, and I say, why are we here? Like, we can go over the numbers. Like, what can we do to help you? Like, I want to be able to answer those hard questions and say, if you stay like this at 5 stores and there's two REITs that are coming into your market, the value of your property is going to drop because the occupancy is going to be taken away. What is that going to do for you? And that's a really hard question to ask somebody. But if I was in their shoes, I want to hear it. Like, that's my dad's building that he built 10 years ago. Whatever it is, I think that's that human element of like, why are we here? What are we doing? And these are the consequences if you stay like this. I think that that needs to be said. I think more of those conversations need to be had not only with me and our group, but every 3 p.m. is, what are we doing? How can we help you? And what is the ultimate goal here?
Easy to see spending a half hour with you why you have been as successful in building what you build. I would be remiss if I didn't say I'm mad because we saw each other up in Connecticut a couple months ago at the Northeast Self Storage Association. You gave me a truck parking club bolo tie. I went to interview Scott Chase from U-Haul and I left the friggin' bolo tie on the table of U-Haul, which somehow got back to you. That thing is going to be like the most valuable piece of memento memorabilia in history. You're rocking the bolo tie today, but it is not the truck parking club bolo tie. 3 weeks in and you already have Go Store It bolo tie ready to go. Looking for it. You going to be handing those out to folks across the industry as you make your way to different trade shows?
The bolo tie lives on, Thaddeus. It will always live on. You will never see me in a regular tie. All right. It's
I
always going to be a bolo.
I love it. Other piece of that is the black cowboy hat going to make a reappearance? You're not wearing it for the show, but do you get to wear that when you're going to trade shows, or is that thing retired?
I hung up the hat, my friends. I want to be a little bit more
Uh,
clean cut, or, you make the little changes in the cowboy hat. Honestly, got a little stinky. So we got to put that
I
thing
love
away.
it. I love it. I love it. Well, listen, my friend, I'm hoping to be out in Las Vegas and get to see you in person at the SSA show in September. Two things I'm going to say. Number one, kudos on what you did for the last 18 months with Truck Parking Club. I told you this off camera. I'll say it again on camera. The attention that you brought to that company in such a short period of time and the way you made that something that everyone was talking about really, really masterfully done. And I guess what I'll say is this: you were a client of theirs before you went to work for them. How important was that to the growth of attention that you were able to bring to that company, that you believed in what they were doing?
I mean, it's I'm sounding like a broken record, but it's like that was my why. You know, if you don't have a why or why you're getting up in the morning, then why even do it? And I made that kind of decision in my head a little later in life, late 20s, now early 30s, now in my mid 30s. And I'm like, why would I do something if I don't believe in it? Why would anybody?
Yeah.
And that's how I did it, man, is I'm just passionate about it, and that's how I got there. Just love it, and just like I'm doing here, love what I'm doing here.
I'll make you feel a little better. I read Simon Sinek's book in my mid 40s. So when I figured out understanding why first, I grew up as Gen X, and we were like, go get a job, figure it out. Like that was it, right? Nobody
Yeah.
said, figure out why you want to be doing something first, and then go figure out how to make that happen. So love that you have that piece of the puzzle answered early on in your life relative to me. Really looking forward to watching what you build at GoStore It. I know you're going to do a phenomenal job there. Thank you so much. I know you're busy at the show out in California, so taking time out to come and spend a half hour with me, really greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, Thaddeus, I appreciate you. And until next time, my friend.
Appreciate you, Andrew. That's it for this week's episode of Storage Unlocked, brought to you by our friends at PB Brown General Contractors. He is the SVP of third party at GoStore It. PB Brown is our sponsor. You see my guy Eric behind the scenes taking care of me. Andrew Jones is not a hard person to get a hold of. You can reach out to him. If you can't get a hold of him, reach out to me. I'll connect you with him. If you want to get any information on GoStore's third party management platform, we'll see everybody next week.